Welcome to Here's How We Get There. It's the daily show filled with conversations about business and mental health in a down-to-earth style with real-world language. Now let's dive in with your co-hosts, Kenneth Shark Kinney and Trey Tucker.
So it's normally me talking about how I'm a Gator fan, but Shark, today is your day because we get to talk about how you are an Arkansas Razorback thanks to the alleged, I think it's pretty much almost confirmed at this point, the point of this recording at least, that John Calipari is going to Arkansas. So give me your thoughts on the whole tumultuous journey. In fact, I think he actually followed you around because he was in Memphis for a
Yeah.
while, and now he's back in your turf again.
Yeah, I tend to be a Razorback fan and a Memphis Tiger fan. I grew up a Razorback fan and grew up with Eddie Sutton and then Nolan Richardson, and still remember to this day seeing when I was a kid the Hogs win the national championship and was just jumping for joy and going nuts. But then later on I went to the University of Memphis, and after I left, John Calipari came in. Was not a fan of him before, and then as he left University of Memphis in a little bit of trouble with the problems with Derrick Rose and everything. And so Memphis, had to take a lot of the stuff that came with Calipari, if you will. And he actually wrote a really great book it's been a couple decades ago. I think it was called Refuse to Lose or something like that, but it was a really good mindset book. And he was a smart coach, but then he went to Kentucky, and then there were even issues with what people thought could potentially happen there. He got lucky. I mean, Kentucky didn't run into it, but I think what a lot of the things we saw with how he got to the place where he is now and has to come back to a different school is he basically found where he, lost a lot of the fan base with what he'd gone through. And I think it's in the back of the Bible in the book of Revelations where they warn the University of Arkansas from hiring him. However, it may not be. That might have been in like a later chapter, but I wouldn't hire him again. Although I think he has a lot of talent, he still brings a cloud of something. I don't want to even call it baggage, but there's a cloud of something that just surrounds the man throughout his career. Is he a smart coach? No, he's brilliant. He has proven himself to be a great coach. He's set up to potentially win titles there because there's a lot of money in that state. There's a lot of support for the Hogs. Can kind of live in the shadow of the football team, which is number one. It's the number one, sport in Arkansas. But I think he compete easily in the SEC, and especially in the way that NIL is. This may actually benefit him a little bit for the next few years because I believe he's 65 now. I read when I first saw this story come out, but he'll do well for a little while and hopefully, it won't mess up the university. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It's better to go to a school where if you make the tournament and advance a little bit, they're happy with that. It's almost like you're overachieving.
The bar was low there.
Yeah, at least it has been for a while, but
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of when Steve Spurrier went to South Carolina, just taking an underdog program and raising them up a little bit, where at Kentucky, if you're not winning a title every few years, you're failing in their eyes, which is pretty much in keeping with their program. But I think the least favorite aspect of his last few years at Kentucky was he was using this line about, well, I'm just here to help the kids and get them out of poverty and get them into the NBA. Because when people would ask him about the lack of success in the tournament, or whether that be the NCAA tournament or the SEC tournament, he would quickly write that off and say, well, I'm just here to help the kids. And I always thought, well, do you know what your job description is? Does anybody have the guts to ask you what your job description is? Because it always seemed like just a way to skirt the issue and to blame shift so that he didn't look bad. It's like, well, yeah, we're losing, but that's not my focus at all. It's kind of like somebody that won't put full effort into whatever they're doing so that if they fail, they could say, oh, well, I wasn't really trying after all. That it had that kind of a feel to me, and he just came off as disingenuous. So I think it was time for him to go, because if you're doing that stuff publicly, then probably privately you're doing something behind closed doors that's letting people know you're not really a man of full integrity. And I don't know that he was doing that, but if you're doing it publicly, you're likely doing it behind the closed doors. And whatever reason, they were not performing on the court, and they had plenty of talent, as you alluded to. So something was not connecting between what he was saying and what his team was hearing. And my hunch is it has something to do with that lack of genuine attitude. But either way, his words had stopped working. And that's what happens with a lot of people in a lot of jobs, no matter if it's an athletic industry or a business or really any kind of nonprofit. If after a while, the same voice just becomes kind of noise in the background, and that's just human nature. So it's better to move on to a place where your voice is fresh and there's optimism and energy. And I think it's great for him and great for Kentucky as well.
Yeah, I think the Hogs basically made the choice. We want to win, and that's a fair request when you look at the quality of coaching that John Calipari has. I think you can't put your finger on it, but there's something there with the cloud around it. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know if anything's going to happen negative with the University of Kentucky that will come out in time. I don't know, but in your mind, you sort of think it will because it happened to him elsewhere. Smart coach on the court, off the court, maybe not always the brightest, but I'm going to wish him well. I've got to root for the Hogs. Go Hogs. Beat the Gators and beat the Wildcats.
Thank you for joining Shark and Trey on the Here's How We Get There show. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and visit here'showwegetthere.com. That's here'showwegetthere.com.